Alright battlers, welcome back to a brand new Draft League video. In this video I'm taking a look at the first half of round 1 of the Master League Draft Tournament. These battles are a lot of fun, but right before that I want to mention that the PoGo Raids Discord server also hosts these draft style tournaments in both Great League and Ultra League. So if you are loving Go Battle League right now, we are in Season 1 of the Great League and you want to do more of these Great League battles, definitely go over and check out their server. They have a lot to offer and it's a ton of fun. These are the teams for the Master League battles that we're going to be watching today. As you know, in the draft style tournament format, you only get one of each Pokemon available. There's only one Dialga, one Mewtwo, one Groudon, one Latios, one Suicune, etc. When you pick your team, you really need to pick Pokemon that complement the rest of your team and build the strongest squad possible. Let's get into it. Going right into the first battle of the video, we see Yowzers 3 versus TBFIV. I really can't wait to see Yowzer's Palkia in action and TBFIV's Electivire. Going to the lead situation here, we do see Lugia facing off against Metagross. This is not a bad matchup for Metagross at all. Its steel typing is going to help it resist those Dragon Tails, and the Sky Attack is not going to do a lot of damage here. Maybe an opportunity to go up for the Hydro Pump and threaten that. However, this Metagross is going to get to its Meteor Mashes so quickly, it's going to put a lot of pressure on this Lugia. Both trainers really want to win this lead matchup to win switch advantage. It is really important in battles like these. This Metagross is going to get to another Meteor Mash, and Yowzers is forced to shield his Lugia. So if you can see there on the left side, I do have both teams, and then on the right side, I have their lines of 3. So you and I know what's in the back, but these trainers had no idea. These were live battles. In comes another Meteor Mash here from the Metagross, and it will take a nice chunk out of Lugia. Lugia has the highest stat product of any Pokemon in the game, making it a beast in the Master League, but it cannot hang with something like Metagross, especially with its incredible damage output and resistances. In comes Lugia, and this Metagross has a ton of energy. It's going to hit this Snorlax with the Earthquake, and then here comes Hariyama. That was a forced swap, though. That allows for Yowzers to bring in his Armored Mewtwo to hard counter this Hariyama. Hariyama is a great fighting type Pokemon in the Master League. It does not have as much bulk, or excuse me, it has more bulk than Machamp, but not as much attack. It does fire off the Heavy Slam there against the Mewtwo. This Mewtwo is carrying Confusion, Rock Slide, and Earthquake. He does fire off that Rock Slide there onto the Metagross, thus absorbing all of that energy. In comes the last Pokemon, and it will be Dragonite. Dragonite is a dragon and flying type Pokemon, so it will take super effective damage from the Rock Slides. This player makes a wonderful swap here into Snorlax to absorb the Dragon Claw from this Dragonite. He does have some energy stored up, so it goes right for the Body Slam to try and do some chip damage on this Dragonite. It's not enough to bring it down, and Dragonite eventually does win that. However, in comes Armored Mewtwo, and one more Confusion seals the deal. Weavile this time. I think this is a wonderful lead. As you can tell there, that Weavile is running Snarl. This Sky Attack is going to come from the Lugia though, and this will actually do a surprising amount of damage to Weavile. It is a great Pokemon. It's very devastating, but it's also very glassy, and if you run it, you really need to give it shields. Snarl is such a fast move. He's actually able to get to a second Avalanche here, doing a ton of damage to this Lugia, but because he did not shield that first Sky Attack, that Weavile is all but done after a few more Dragon Tails. TBFIV decides to bring in his Metagross here. This is a match we saw earlier, but this time Lugia's got a ton of energy. It does fire off that Hydro Pump, and it goes unshielded, taking almost half of this Metagross's health. At this point, he's going to allow that Meteor Mash through, soak up that energy with Lugia, and then bring in Snorlax. So Snorlax is running Lick. That is a Dark type attack that's going to be super effective against Psychic type Metagross. He does decide to drop that Body Slam just to put some shield pressure on the Metagross here, and then shield his Snorlax from this Earthquake. He is trying to keep his Snorlax as healthy as possible for whatever's in the back. In comes that Dragonite though, and Yowzers is ready. He's going to try to get to these Rock Slides, and this is really where Armored Mewtwo differentiates itself from its unarmored counterpart, because this Dragonite's going to fire off a Stab Outrage, and it's not enough to bring down the Armored Mewtwo. It's such a bulky generalist. He's going to get to one more Rock Slide here and draw that final shield, and then bring down that Dragonite with Confusion. In Game 3, we do see some more changes with our lines. We see that Snorlax lead into Electivire. Electivire is a crazy hard Pokemon to use. It is not very bulky at all, but it does output serious damage. As you can see there, the Wild Charge does take a nice chunk out of the Snorlax. However, Snorlax is going to return fire with a Body Slam. These licks are doing more damage than this Thundershock just by virtue of Snorlax being as bulky as it is. It does go for a second Body Slam there, a little low battery alert, but not a big deal. In comes Electivire's Wild Charge, and again, these licks are actually going to outpace the Thundershocks, and Snorlax squeaks by with just 1 HP remaining. In comes Weavile, which denies that Body Slam, but Yowzers has one switch priority here, so he does decide to bring in his Lugia. Lugia is going to have to burn some shields here and get rid of this Weavile as quickly as possible. As we learned from the battle earlier, this Lugia can tank one Avalanche, but not much more than that. In comes that second Avalanche to burn that final shield, and then comes a Sky Attack from this Lugia. As we know, Yowzers does have Armored Mewtwo in the back, and he's trying to protect it from this Dark-type Weavile because a few of those foul plays would really destroy his Mewtwo. He's going to be able to farm down the rest of that Weavile, TBFIV electing to hold on to his final shield here for the Dragonite, so that Lugia does have some energy stored. Out comes Armored Mewtwo. The Dragon Claw is just going to do a bit of chip damage here. I think that might have been an opportunity to go right for the Outrage. However, in comes the Rock Slide, taking this Dragonite's final shield. This Dragonite does get to another attack. Let's see if it's Outrage. It's just another Dragon Claw, so it is generally chipping down at this Mewtwo. In comes one more Rock Slide from the Mewtwo, and that's almost enough, but one more Confusion will seal the deal. Going right into this set of battles, we see VLEPH going up against OUSSAMESTA. So VLEPH does have that Giratina origin form. USA is carrying Dialga, but this lead situation is perfect for Articuno. That Gliscor wants to get out of there immediately. Now this Dialga is going to counter the Articuno, but before he switches out, he's going to set his teammate up very well by firing off the Icy Wind. In comes this Heatran here, and Heatran is kind of a weird Master League Pokemon. It does counter a lot of the meta really hard, Dialga and Togekiss included. Being a Fire Steel type, it does have a very, very strong weakness to ground, but it does have great utility against some of the top dogs like Dialga. So in comes that Gliscor, but this Heatran has tons of energy ready to go. The worst case scenario here is that Heatran gets hit by an Earthquake, but he does get to that second Flamethrower, just putting a ton of pressure on this Gliscor. That he does force that first shield. Out comes Giratina origin form. Now Gliscor is going to decide to go for the Aerial Ace here. Does a little bit of damage, but out comes Mewtwo. Now, Mewtwo is going to have a really hard time against Giratina origin form. I do think this is really unfortunate that Dialga wasn't ready to face off against the Giratina here, because even with the Psy Strike, as you can tell, that Shadow Claw is just shredding this Mewtwo. He does fire off the Ominous Wind here, and Mewtwo gets to one more attack. Now, this won't be resisted, so it will do a nice chunk of damage. Psy Strike is such a devastating move, but the Dragon Claws are more than enough. In comes this Gliscor, and here comes the Ominous Win, and right here at the end we get the boost. Going into this next game, we do see a swap in the lead situation with Tyranitar in the lead, and USA does bring his Suicune this time. So this is a beautiful matchup, again, catching the lead really hard with that Tyranitar. In comes that Suicune, and we know that there were only a few Snarls fired off, so this will be a Bubble Beam. It is super effective due to Tyranitar's rock typing, but doesn't do much damage. In comes this Giratina origin form and another Bubble Beam. This Suicune is trying to nerf as many Pokemon on the team as possible. Here comes an Ominous Wind from this Giratina origin form. It does a little chunk of damage to Suicune, but Suicune is such a high density Pokemon once it does reach that Master League level. Another Bubble Beam coming in from the Suicune here, and OUSSAMESTA is really just trying to nerf this Giratina as far as possible. He does sneak in the Ice Beam there, which is really impressive. Ice being super effective against Dragon. In comes another attack here from the Giratina, but it does have extra energy stored, so out comes the Shadow Ball, and even though this is nerfed, it still does a nice little chunk of damage to this Dialga. So Heatran comes in here, and this is the perfect counter situation. Out comes Mewtwo, and Tyranitar catches it right here with the crunch, right in the jaws of Tyranitar. Mewtwo is in serious trouble here. We don't know if this Mewtwo is running Focus Blast. It's actually running Psy Strike, and I believe Flamethrower, but either way, this is not a great situation. These bites are really adding up quickly. So because of, it's actually Thunderbolt, excuse me. Because of the current situation, he does invest that second shield here in the Tyranitar and then fire off the crunch here against Dialga. This will get shielded and take that final shield. However, this Dialga is very much still in play. It does fire off that Iron Head, which is super effective against the Tyranitar. Out comes Heatran here, and it fires the Flamethrower, which will be enough to bring down Dialga. In the final battle of this set, we do see that Articuno lead going up against Dialga. So this is generally not a great lead for Articuno, however, it can make it work depending on how these Icy Winds stack up. So at this point, a VLEPH is going to decide to stay in. He does go for that first Icy Wind, and because of Dialga's Steel typing, this is actually just going to be a neutral attack. Dialga's Dragon typing is great, but it does have its drawbacks, and that Steel typing really shores up its weaknesses. So he does fire off that Iron Head against this Articuno, but VLEPH is able to reach another attack here. This one actually will be the Ice Beam, which that Dialga shields. So very, very good shield there by OUSSAMESTA. He is able to take down that Articuno, but out comes the Heatran. Now Heatran, a little swap shenanigans going on here. We know that this is either Ice Beam or Bubble Beam, and it's actually just the Bubble Beam. This Heatran is actually going to be able to get to a Stone Edge here. Just try to put some pressure on the Suicune, take a little bit of damage, a little bit of health away from it. Here comes the Giratina Origin form, and that Ice Beam is going to hurt. It will be super effective. In comes the Ominous Wind here from the Giratina Origin form. No boost, but these Shadow Claws are going to do great work. At this point, VLEPH is going to decide to shield his Giratina and probably attempt for the farm down, but out comes the switch into Dialga. So the switch timer is up. OUSSAMESTA is maneuvering his way through this battle as best he can. In comes that Suicune, and the Shadow Claws take it down. This Giratina is just so crazy, ridiculously strong. He's going to go straight for the Shadow Ball here against Gliscor, and it is unshielded, probably expecting the Ominous Wind. Here comes an Ominous Wind from the Giratina, forcing that final shield away from Gliscor, but he is locked into this charge attack, so the Sand Tomb is actually not going to be able to bring down the Giratina. He gets to one more Ominous Wind, and this is very GG's. What a great set. Going into this next set of battles, we do have DUTCHGOKU taking on TBFIV. DUTCHGOKU is bringing the mythical Jirachi. It is such an awesome Pokemon in the Master League. He's going to lead with his Swampert with that Giratina altered form and Jirachi in the back. This time he's going to encounter Gallade, and this is a horrible lead situation. Swampert cannot hang there. In comes this Giratina altered form against the Dragonite. His Giratina is going to go straight for the Ancient Power here, always hoping for the boost, and he does get it off the first Ancient Power. Such an amazing turn of events. This Dragonite is just getting shredded by these Dragon Breaths. So the Giratina is boosted, and Dutch does invest a shield into it. Out comes Hariyama, and he's just going to ride this Giratina train as long as it lasts. He does fire off the Shadow Sneak here, taking a huge chunk of health away from this Hariyama. This Hariyama is basically KO'd before it can even get off its first attack, which will be Heavy Slam. Now at this point, it's pretty bad for TBFIV. He does have two shields, but this Giratina with the boost has just run through his entire team. This Giratina does get to another attack, another Shadow Sneak, which will get shielded, but the Dragon Breaths are going to do an immense amount of damage over time. This Gallade is finally able to bring down the Giratina. I spoke too soon. In comes another Shadow Sneak for this boosted Giratina, taking that last shield. Gallade finally takes down Giratina. In comes the Swampert. Here comes a Leaf Blade from the Gallade, and this will be enough to bring down Swampert, but out comes the final Pokemon, Jirachi, and this is GG's. What a crazy showcase of Giratina altered form. Taking a look at their next battle, we do see TBFIV change his lead into Hariyama. So again, DUTCHGOKU not winning the lead here, but he does have that wonderful Giratina option in case he chooses to exercise it. So here comes a Hydro Cannon from the Swampert. This attack will go unshielded. Again, like I mentioned a couple of battles back, this Hariyama does have great bulk for a fighting type, and that Dynamic Punch is still going to get stabbed, so it does hurt really badly. He's going to fire off another Hydro Cannon here, which will get shielded. TBFIV does swap into his Dragonite here, allowing the Jirachi to come in. Now, Jirachi is a Steel and Psychic type Pokemon. It's going to resist these Dragon Breaths, and because this Dragonite very likely doesn't have access to anything other than Dragon type moves, this is actually a really nice situation for the Jirachi. It can just use this Charge Beam to get to its Doom Desires really quickly and just put a lot of pressure on this Dragonite. He does get to another Doom Desire here, hitting the Excellent, drawing that first shield, and just 2 charge beams later, he gets to another Doom Desire. So in comes this Hariyama, and he is going to be able to take it down with Doom Desire. How crazy. Out comes the Metagross and another Doom Desire from this Jirachi. This thing refuses to die. It's going to take these bullet punches like a champ and finally gets KO'd. However, Dutch does have both of his shields still at his disposal. He does bring in this Giratina altered form here, shield the Earthquake, and then he's going to go right here for the Shadow Sneak. These Pokemon got to their moves at the same time. However, he's going to lose charge move priority to that Meteor Mash, but the Shadow Sneak is going to be devastating all the same. These Dragon Breaths are resisted, but they're barely enough to bring down the Metagross. Out comes the Dragonite here, and he does use his final shield on his Giratina altered form. Giratina gets to that Ancient Power here, and that is going to be enough to take down Dragonite and win the game. Going into the final match, we do see DUTCHGOKU decide to lead with his Jirachi. Jirachi will encounter that Dragonite, and just like we saw in Game 2, it's going to resist pretty much anything the Dragonite can throw at it. Out comes the Hariyama, and these fighting type attacks are actually not doing that much. He's actually going to flex his second charge move here, which is Psychic, and it does an incredible amount of damage to that Hariyama, really taking a massive chunk out of it. He will decide to shield up that Dynamic Punch and then farm down with the charge beams. Jirachi is playing no games here. Out comes the Metagross, and this just shows you once again the incredible staying power of Jirachi. He is going to fire off the first Doom Desire and then go for a second Doom Desire, and suddenly this Metagross is at half health against these steel type attacks, which is just so crazy to me. In comes another Doom Desire, and this Metagross is deep into the red before it even fires off its first charge move. It will be the Meteor Mash. That's enough to bring down the Jirachi. Out comes Swampert here, and he's almost able to farm down with the Mud Shots. Nice over farming there to get an extra Mud Shot worth of energy, and then here comes a charge attack from the Metagross. This will not KO Swampert, so he's going to allow it through, saving that final shield. Here comes the Dragonite, and he's going to go straight for his Hydro Cannon. This was a very favorable matchup early on, but the tables have turned. In comes Regice. Regice is running Blizzard and Earthquake, and the Lock-On is going to charge so quickly. The Regis are just so insane since they got Lock-On. He's going to shield up that Blizzard, and here comes an attack from the Dragonite, which will be Outrage. It is not enough to KO this Regice though. Here comes another attack from the Dragonite. It will be a Dragon Claw. He is going to use his last shield there and unable to get to the Blizzard to seal the deal. GG's. In this next set, we do see Yowzers 3 taking on OUSSAMESTA. These are extremely competitive games, extremely close battles, and tough losses. Here we go with our Snorlax against this Dialga. Now, Snorlax's best tool against Dialga will be the Earthquake if it's not running Outrage. In comes Mewtwo, though, and we are seeing a Mewtwo versus Armored Mewtwo showdown. This is such an awesome battle to watch. Here comes a Thunderbolt from this Mewtwo, and then the Armored Mewtwo is going to return fire with the Rock Slide. Now, by sheer virtue of Mewtwo having access to Psycho Cut versus Armored Mewtwo's Confusion, it will get to its charge moves more quickly. So in order to win this matchup, Yowzers really does need to burn shields with his Armored Mewtwo. He does shield that first Psy Strike and then go here for a Rock Slide. This will be enough to KO if his opponent does not shield, which they do not. That Mewtwo does have some energy gathered already, but will it survive long enough to get to the charge moves? In comes Dialga, and the answer is no. Dragon Breath is going to kill it really quickly. In comes Snorlax with that stored energy from before. That Earthquake is going to be super effective, and the shield usage on this side is not really good. Draco Meteor drops the Snorlax. Out comes Palkia, and it all comes down to what's in the back. Here comes Latios. Palkia is a great Dragon-type Pokemon. It only has one shield, though, so Latios is going to go here for the Dragon Claw. Palkia has got big charge moves, but the Dragon Breaths are just not enough, and Latios squeaks by with a 1 HP victory. Going to this game, we see the same lead situation, Snorlax versus Dialga. Dialga is going to stay in here for a moment. That's Snorlax getting energy together, attempting to maybe go for the Earthquake or bluff the Body Slam. Dialga is going to fire off the Iron Head, which will get shielded though. A little bit of lag encounter there, but out comes Suicune. Now, the safe swap for Yowzers is the Armored Mewtwo because it's such a wonderful generalist, but this matchup against Suicune is really unknown waters to me. I don't know how this matchup plays out. He's going to go straight here for the Dynamic Punch, taking a little chunk out of Suicune, but those Bubble Beams are already showing their effect. This Armored Mewtwo's attack is going to fall through the floor, really unable to really do much against the Suicune. In comes another attack, another Bubble Beam, and this Armored Mewtwo is really just Bubble Beam down into the dirt. It does fire off the rock slide here, and look at that, just barely any damage at all. He does bring in that Snorlax here, trying to remove the Suicune from the battlefield, but the Suicune does shield. This thing is so resistant. He is going to fire off an Ice Beam here against the Snorlax, so he is not packing Hydro Pump. There is no one-shot move here, but the Body Slam will finally be enough to bring down the Suicune. Out comes this Dialga, and he's pushing for the Earthquake, but he realizes that he's not going to get there in time. He does go straight for the Body Slam here. Not very effective damage, just doing a little bit of chip damage to the Dialga. Out comes the Lugia here, and Lugia, again, a wonderful generalist, but can it do well against this Dialga? Out comes the Armored Mewtwo, and he does get to the charge move before he's able to fire off his own. Iron Head is barely going to let this Armored Mewtwo survive. He does go for the Rock Slide here, and it will not be enough to take down Dialga. Such a monster, especially with that Best Buddy ribbon. In comes the Mewtwo versus Lugia, and this Mewtwo is packing Thunderbolt, so it's not a great situation. It does also have shield advantage. It's going to fire off the first Thunderbolt here against Lugia, and this is still a very, very close match. He is able to get to one more Sky Attack here. I expect the final shield to come up, which it does. Mewtwo is going to get to one more attack here at the moment, and at the last moment, and that's all it needs. Thunderbolt takes down Lugia to win the game. In the final battle of this set, we do see the Palkia lead going up against Suicune. So Palkia is a water dragon type. It does have huge charge moves that do tons of damage, and that Dragon Breath does take a long time to get there, but it does have great bulk, and that water typing helps shore it up against some resistances that the dragon typing doesn't help it with. It does go straight here for the Draco Meteor, destroying that Suicune. Out comes the Dialga here, and out comes Snorlax. In return, Mewtwo arrives on the battlefield. Now this Snorlax is going to shield this first attack. It will be the Side Strike. I promise, guys, when Mewtwo got Side Strike, it's such an incredible move, and it gets to it so quickly. It does immense damage. This Snorlax is going to go for another Body Slam here, just trying to put some more shield pressure on the Mewtwo. It does land that first Body Slam after absorbing that first shield. In comes a Side Strike, and again, taking a huge chunk out of Snorlax. The Licks are doing good work, though, being a Dark type attack. In comes another attack, and it will be a Side Strike. That will bring down the Snorlax. Out comes Palkia. The Dragon Breath erases Mewtwo, and now Palkia is lined up with Dialga. The Water Dragon does not do well against the Steel Dragon, and it falls. In comes the Armored Mewtwo, and this is his last hope. He's going to shield up the Iron Head there, hoping to catch the Thunder, but he wasn't successful. Another attack coming from Dialga. It will be Draco Meteor, and that will wrap up this game. For this set of battles, we do have BTOPHER going up against OUSSAMESTA. That Togekiss is extremely deadly, a wonderful dragon type counter, and for this first game, BTOPHER does decide to lead his Togekiss with that Raikou and Alolan Muck in the back. He does lead Togekiss into Mewtwo here, and Mewtwo is going to get chunked down by these charms, but he does not want to get hit by the Thunderbolt, so he is going to shield his Togekiss here. It actually was the Side Strike that time. Both trainers encounter a little bit of lag here, or at least it appeared like lag, but the Mewtwo is able to get to another charge attack, which means it was getting fast moves in there somewhere. This Togekiss does go for a charge move here. After spending both shields to defend it, he is going to finally bring down that Mewtwo. Out comes Suicune, though, and Suicune is going to get a ton of energy with these snarls. The legendary beasts are going at it. Raikou versus Suicune. The Bubble Beam is going to land first. Out comes Dialga, and now that this Raikou has been nerfed, there's probably no need to shield here, allowing OUSSAMESTA to save his shields, but he does want to keep his Dialga extremely healthy for whatever his opponent does have in the back. He does take that Shadow Ball, though, and then charging up a ton of energy with those Dragon Breaths. BTOPHER does decide to bring in his Alolan Muck here, just trying to burn some shields and do some damage. Alolan Muck is great in the Ultra League. It does well in the Master League as well. However, it just doesn't have the CP ceiling needed to really hang with a lot of these big boys like Dialga here. As you can tell, the Dragon Breaths are really wearing it down, and being out of shields is a really terrible situation against Dialga. Out comes Togekiss, and the charms are going to do good work. Trying to avoid another charge move, he does go straight for the Aerial Ace, and then his last Pokemon, Suicune, comes in. Suicune is going to get to a charge move, though, and I think this is Ice Beam, and it is taking down Togekiss for round 1. For game 2, we do see BTOPHER decide to lead his Raikou with his Machamp and Togekiss in the back. Raikou goes right into this Mewtwo, and this is a very interesting matchup. Both of these Pokemon get to their charge moves really quickly. Psycho Cut and Thundershock are both great moves for generating energy and not doing a lot of damage. He's going to overcharge there, go straight for the Shadow Ball, which does get shielded, and then he gets to a second Shadow Ball, but it's a CMP tie. He is going to defend his Raikou here from the Psy Strike, and then the Shadow Ball is already locked in, so it's going to come at that Mewtwo full speed. He does decide to shield that second Shadow Ball, and the race is on. This Mewtwo actually wins the race, and that is the serious upside to to Psy Strike. He is able to get to it so quickly. The Wild Charge does land, an opportunity there to barely get off the Shadow Ball, but it's okay. He does take down that Mewtwo and then bring in his Machamp to deal with Dialga. Now he does already get to the cross chop here, which is great news against Dialga. Out comes Suicune, and he's going to stay in here for just a moment. Suicune doesn't have anything that can one-shot this Machamp, so he is staying in the match for just a moment, but he does decide to finally bring in his Togekiss. I think there might have been an opportunity there to soak some energy with your Machamp and then come in with Togekiss to wear down the rest of the Suicune. If it was a Bubble Beam, that would be even better. You would just take that nerf and then swap. Ice Beam will take down that Togekiss. Out comes the Dialga, and the cross chop is already loaded and ready. Very, very complete win here by BTOPHER. For this game, he is going to lead with his Togekiss with that Raikou and Machamp in the back. He really loved watching Machamp beat up on that Dialga in game 2, so he brought it a second time. This Togekiss is going to encounter Dialga here, and as we learned from our Go Battle League Master League battles, Togekiss can eventually win this, but it does need to shield those Iron Heads. In comes an Iron Head, which takes a huge chunk out of Machamp, and unfortunately, his best Dialga counter is out on the battlefield right now, getting beat up on by Gliscor. Gliscor is running Fury Cutter, so it's going to get to its charge moves really quickly. It is running Sand Tomb here, so we'll drop that Machamp's defense. Almost able to farm down, but not before a cross chop comes his way. It won't be very effective though. This Gliscor able to survive with some energy banked is going to fire off a charge move here. Even the Earthquake or the Aerial Ace would not be a big deal, but it will be the Sand Tomb. So one more charm takes down the Gliscor, and out comes Mewtwo to face off here against Togekiss. A beautiful swap here into Raikou. Going to absorb this Psy Strike with that first shield, and then try to burn some of these shields by bluffing the Shadow Ball, instead going for the Wild Charge here. It does earn the shield all the same. I think at this range it probably would KO the Mewtwo, but he does get to the Psy Strike. Raikou barely hanging on. Out comes the Dialga, and the switch timer is just not in BTOPHER's advantage right now. He does go straight for the Shadow Ball here, hoping to land it against Dialga because it would do a great amount of damage, which it does land, and that's beautiful. A little bit of lag experience there, but the Dragon Breaths take down that Raikou. In comes the Togekiss to face off here against the Dialga, unable to get to the Iron Head, and then in comes the Mewtwo. So this Togekiss has really wrestled control of the match back into BTOPHER's favor. In comes a charge move from the Mewtwo, which will be the Psy Strike. It does get shielded, and these charms are going to be almost enough, but one more Aerial Ace is the final nail in the coffin. In this set of battles, we do see VLEPH taking on DUTCHGOKU. I'm really excited to see Granbull in these sets. It's such an amazing Pokemon, and with the only viable charmer being Togekiss in the Master League, Granbull has lost a lot of shine, but I think it deserves much more. Here we see Granbull against Swampert, and then the quick swap into Tyranitar against Swampert. That's a curious decision by me, but I think VLEPH is just trying to line up DUTCHGOKU in a way that is more favorable for him. So in comes the Regice here, and the Earthquake, because it's not stab, is not going to be enough to bring down the Tyranitar. These bites are going to do great damage over time. Crunch taking a little chunk out of this Regice, but again, the bites doing the majority of the work. Suddenly, this Regice is very, very weak. He's going to shield up this Earthquake here and then bite down the Regice to win that matchup. This Tyranitar has a ton of energy. Out comes this Giratina altered form. Now, Giratina is a great Pokemon in the Ultra League, especially the altered form, but the Origin form is the king of the Master League. We're going to see why here. Granbull comes in to counter this Dragon type, and literally nothing that Giratina can do here will really hurt Granbull that badly. Out comes the Swampert, and in comes Giratina Origin form. So these are two trainers with the Giratinas. It's very, very hard to get the Giratinas in a draft league like this because they go so early in the draft, but these two beasts are facing off against each other in this video right here. It's amazing. So here we see our Swampert firing off a Hydro Cannon. Not very effective damage at all. This Giratina's got a boatload of energy to face off against its sister. Here comes the Giratina Altered Form's Dragon Claw, super effective damage. In comes an Ominous Wind here from the Giratina Origin Form, and then out comes a Grand Bolt. Now, this attack, I think if it's an Ancient Power, it will KO, and it does. Out comes that Giratina Origin Form. This is right down to the wire. These two Ghost Dragons are going at it, and the Giratina Origin Form wins. In round 2, we do see the Giratinas going head-to-head in the lead situation. This Giratina Altered Form is running Shadow Claw, so it's going to get to its Dragon Claws very quickly. Here comes an attack from the Giratina Altered Form. Dragon Claw, as expected, super effective damage, but the Giratina Origin Form goes straight for the Shadow Ball. It does get shielded, very, very clutch shield by DUTCHGOKU there. In comes another attack from the Giratina Altered, and it will be the Dragon Claw. So this Giratina Origin Form is behind on energy. It is going to fire off the Ominous Wind, and it does get shielded. So Dutch has poured both shields into his Giratina. Here comes the second shield on VLEPH's side, and he goes here for the Ominous Wind. Possibly an opportunity to go for the Shadow Ball there, but it's still a very close match. He's actually almost able to Dragon Claw, or excuse me, Shadow Claw down, but the Dragon Claw will take down Giratina Origin Form. Out comes the Grand Bolt to drop that Giratina. In comes the Jirachi, and out comes Tyranitar. Jirachi does have a counter though. It does fire off that Doom Desire, and then in comes the Swampert. Swampert is going to get to the Hydro Cannon so quickly, it's going to be able to fire that off before Tyranitar even gets to a charge move. Out comes the Grand Bolt, and the tables have turned. This is not a good situation for VLEPH and his Grand Bolt. Hydro Cannon doing a ton of damage, a couple of extra charms to try to maybe get to a second charge move, but charm just doesn't generate energy quickly enough. Out comes Jirachi, and the Doom Desire is going to seal Grand Bolt's fate. GG's. Going to the final game of this set, we see Swampert leading into Giratina Origin Form. This Swampert cannot do much to hurt this Pokemon. Out comes the Giratina Altered Form. However, this Giratina Origin Form has at least 1 or 2 Shadow Claws worth of energy lead. The Giratina Altered Form did not shield that first attack, and VLEPH is going to match by not shielding his Giratina. He does swap here into Tyranitar. A beautiful swap to catch the Dragon Claw here. As you can see, barely any damage done to Tyranitar at all. He really doesn't need to shield any attack coming from Giratina Origin Form, so he does save his shields for his other Pokemon in the back. With some energy now, he is able to get to the Crunch. This is going to do good work against Swampert. A little bit of chip damage just to put it in the ballpark range of maybe being KO'd by an Ominous Wind later. This Swampert does get to Hydro Cannon though, and he's going to let his Tyranitar go. In comes the Giratina Origin Form, straight for the Ominous Wind, always hoping for the boost, and he doesn't get it. In comes the Jirachi though, and this is a mythical versus the big Ghost Dragon Giratina Origin Form. He does fire off that first Ominous Wind, and it does get shielded. Jirachi does return fire with the Doom Desire, which is shielded as well. In comes another attack from the Giratina Origin Form, trying to take down this little Pokemon, but look at that. Even though it's super effective, that Jirachi survives. Here comes a Doom Desire, which does get shielded for the second time. Giratina does get to another Ominous Wind here, just trying to put pressure on Jirachi, but the David and Goliath story is going to play out. Jirachi slings his rock, the Doom Desire takes down the Giratina Origin Form. Grand Bull comes out to end the game. If you're still watching, you are definitely enjoying this Draft League content. Head over to the PoGo Raids Discord server, link in the description below, and check it out. For the final set of the video, we do see Yowzers 3 going up against BTOPHER. These are awesome matches, and thank you so much for staying until the end. Yowzers does decide to lead with his Regirock. He's going to lead it right into BTOPHER's Togekiss, and this is a wonderful position for Regirock. He definitely wants to hit this Togekiss with Stone Edge. If BTOPHER is going to have any chance of salvaging this lead matchup, he needs to make this Regirock waste its energy on the next Pokemon coming in. He is charming down quite a bit, and out comes Raikou to absorb this Stone Edge. He is going to not shield that, allowing Raikou to take that damage. In comes another Stone Edge though from Regirock, and if you've noticed, battlers, we've seen all 3 of the Regis in this video. They are such great assets in the Master League, and if Regirock and Regis come back to raids, I'm definitely going to go raid for some because they are super useful. He's actually able to get to another Stone Edge because those Thunder Shocks are just doing no damage at all. Out comes the Togekiss to wrap up the Regirock, and then in comes the Lugia to answer. So Lugia is going to go here for the Sky attacks, but not before this Togekiss goes for the Ancient Power. Unfortunately for BTOPHER, no boost on the Ancient Power. However, I think he's gonna get another chance here, and he does. Lugia does land that first Sky Attack. In comes another Ancient Power, and still no boost. But out comes the Alolan Muck, and then in comes Palkia. Shields are down, so Alolan Muck is going to fire off its best shot here. It will be Acid Spray in order to soften up that Palkia, and because it is switch locked, this will do a ton of damage. He does reach a CMP tie and win it with the Dark Pulse, bringing that Palkia way deep into the red. Out comes the Draco Meteor, which will lower Palkia's attack. In comes the Togekiss, and I think there's an opportunity here to maybe farm up the Palkia and go for one more Ancient Power, but this Lugia already has energy ready. It does go straight for the Sky Attack here, which will take his last shield. Togekiss is going to work up here to a charge move, and it just barely pulls it off. Ancient Power is going to take down Lugia for the win. Going to this match, we do see the Regirock lead again, this time Armored Mewtwo and Lugia, and then the Raikou lead on the opposing side. This is not a great matchup for Raikou. It doesn't really have a lot that can hurt this Regirock outside of Shadow Ball, and these Stone Edges are going to add up really quickly. He does go for the Wild Charge there, and it will do a decent chunk to Regirock, but not as much as I think Shadow Ball would do. He is going to take that first Stone Edge as well, so neither trainer is allowing their shields to be burnt this early on in the battle. That Stone Edge does come through, and this Raikou is just barely able to get to another charge move. This Wild Charge is going to come through, allowing that Regirock to live, so Yowzers will win the lead here. In comes the Togekiss, and it barely reaches another Stone Edge. Real bummer for BTOPHER here, having to burn his first shield on the Togekiss. Out comes the Armored Mewtwo, and this is actually not a good situation. In comes the Lugia versus Alolan Muck. So Alolan Muck, being a dark type, is going to do well against the Lugia here. Maybe expecting the Acid Spray, he does not shield, but the Dark Pulse comes through. Snarl is so quick post buff that it's actually able to get to another attack. The Acid Spray is going to take that first shield away from Lugia. I hate it when that happens, when the Grape Jelly gets your shield, but double Sky Attacks are going to put an end to this Alolan Muck. That first shield does come up though, so I'm expecting another Dark Pulse here. Now that this Lugia has been softened up, Dark Pulse will be enough to KO it. In comes that Armored Mewtwo, and he's going to immediately throw that Rock Slide on the Togekiss here. It will be super effective damage. Togekiss is out of shields, but he is able to get to one more charge move here, being the Ancient Power. Still no boost for the Togekiss, and these confusions are just piling up with energy. This Togekiss is actually able to get to one more charge attack. It won't be enough, though. Out comes the Alolan Muck as a surprise maneuver, but the Rock Slide brings it down. GG's. Going into the last game of the video, we do see that Regirock lead into Togekiss, and this is a real bummer for BTOPHER. He's going to try to play this a little bit like he did the first game because he did do well there. This Stone Edge is going to come through though, and it will get shielded. Togekiss, again, getting a lot of energy together here, makes a swap into Raikou, but this time Yowzers holds his energy with Regirock and instead brings in Lugia. Lugia is a Psychic type, and these Wild Charges and Shadow Balls are not going to treat it very well. It does fire off the Sky Attack here against the Raikou, doing a little bit of chip damage, but overall, this is not a good situation for Yowzers. The Wild Charge coming through, taking a huge chunk out of Lugia. Another Sky Attack, just trying to put pressure on Raikou. I think he can survive it, and he does. In comes another attack from the Raikou, just totally relentless. Does fire off the Wild Charge. Out comes the swap, and a mutual swap here into Alolan Muck, and this match is extremely interesting. Alolan Muck does get to the Acid Spray, which I think is a bit questionable, but out comes the Dynamic Punch. This will be neutral against Alolan Muck, but it still takes a nice little chunk. Alolan Muck at this point really trying to set itself up for a home run. Fires off that Dark Pulse, almost enough to take down the Armored Mewtwo, but it survives. Is able to get off the Rock Slide, drawing that final shield. Alolan Muck has a ton of energy loaded and ready to go though, so he is going to reach a CMP tie here with the Lugia. Lugia will win it, firing off the Sky Attack, bringing down Alolan Muck. In comes Togekiss, out comes Regirock, and here comes the Stone Edge, and that is almost GG's. Togekiss is going to get to a charge move though. I don't think anything it has will bring it down. Ancient Power does a decent chunk, but another Stone Edge is going to seal the deal. Trainers, I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to do the second half of these battles very soon, so if you like it, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and then subscribe if you really want to see more. Raikou brings down that Regirock. In comes the Lugia, and the Dragon Tails win it.